Anytime you're ready.
Well, it's 4 o'clock, so let's get this meeting started. This is the Town of Somerville's March 16th Design Review Board. The first is reviewing the minutes. Is there someone that would like to amend or make a motion for approval? Just need a,
Make a motion, we approve the minutes last month.
there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All vote in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, first order, no signs, correct?
No signs.
First order of business is the Roper Medical Office Building. If you would come up and just make sure you state your role in the project. I know it, but I'm going to recuse from this one. And are you waiting on Milton or anybody?
Well, Milton sends his apologies. He had a cross conflict of
Sure.
things that he couldn't miss.
Mhm.
He does apologize for not being able to be
Sure.
here. Yes,
Okay, but so you're ready to go.
it's me. Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm going to recuse. Okay, all right. Thank you much.
You ready? You want me to wait? Yes, sir. Okay. Afternoon, Charles Muldrow, SMHA. And we are here again for preliminary approval for the Sawmill Medical Office Building for Roper Hospital. We recently came before you for conceptual approval. Just for the little reminder, the development is 50 some acres. It was master plan based on the history of the site, just downstream from the original sawmill that is the namesake for Sawmill Branch, and for the design guidelines as we developed them. That this used to be used as for making brick, not on the site, but taking the clay from the site for brick. So there are a lot of brick and wood, and this industrial, rural industrial or aesthetic kind of form the design guidelines. We're working on the project. As you look on the site plan, building number 1, it's at the corner of Berlin G. Myers and Highway 78. And you've already approved the apartment complex, which is number 9. Next slide. Site plan really hasn't changed. It has 3 entries: the medical office building entry, the urgent care pedestrian entrance or private entrance, and then the ambulance urgent care entrance, which is on the far left of the site. Next slide. Oh, before you leave that one, and we were asked about photometrics. Our photometrics are in progress, a little longer than you think, but that is the light fixture that was approved for the apartment complex, albeit with a wood pole, kind of carrying that wood theme through, and we're carrying that around throughout the entire development. Okay, next slide. Grading plan. Make sure I want to come back to it. Next slide. Moving on. Next slide. Okay, so the master plan was completed by Seaman Whiteside, and that was the landscape plans, which for the trail system that permeates the site. 3 coming up from the branch up to Berlin G. Myers, the one that impacts our site most on the left-hand side, paralleling Highway 78. And that landscape plan was completed by Seaman Whiteside. Next slide. And then our development will then mesh with that in terms of the landscape plan, which is in your package. I guess not much to say in regards to that. Really a lot of tree islands, and then the frontage along the unnamed crossroad from left to right that connects the entire development, and the rest of it will be meshed with the Seaman Whiteside package. Okay, next slide. Next. There's some conversation last time on the site and what is the surroundings. We wanted to remind you of what the surroundings were and the level that we're bringing to this site on this corner, and the importance of that we're going to give to this corner relative to the other projects that are across the street, diagonally across the street from us. And so we're very proud of what we're bringing to Somerville in that regard. Next slide. Floor plans are here for reference if you want to come back to them. Move on to the next bit. So I have the elevations organized so that you have what you saw last time at the top and what is new on the bottom. Looking at the south elevation that's in front of you, really not much change. The entrance in the guidelines is that the development is inwardly focused. That it's a project that talks to itself interior of the site. And as the guidelines say, there has to be equal emphasis put on the street side, which we'll talk about in a second. But our main entrance is the dual nest gables for the medical office building. You see a little bit to the left, we had to move down the urgent care entrance a little bit. Again, for Greg, who wasn't here last time, there's kind of industrial aesthetic to the portico shares. Something we carried around the building and at all three of the entries. And then the next slide. And you ask us, well, what is the signage? So, and what is the detailing? And so we tried to put into the package a good bit of the detailing showing corrugated metal, and I'll show you the samples in a minute. The ribbed metal that provides background for signs. In this case, the sign facing the street. Next slide. And then the elevation that we talked a good bit about the last time. And so we took your comments to heart there. And so we went back and we realized that the screen on top of the building provided kind of a run-on sentence and an opportunity. And so what we've worked with the mechanical engineers to develop to organize the mechanical units so that the screens provide almost a cornice. We gave them more heft in line with the portico share things as we kind of discussed last time, to give them more prominence, brought them closer to the face of the building so that they really start to articulate and accentuate those four masses down the street. It was suggested, and we did, bring in the metal panels that are between the first and second floor windows that are on the parking lot side. We toyed last time, obviously, with this wood panel. We brought that wood around, the metal around, so there's a consistency around the building, and we actually think that it's quite a good move to kind of give it a unity of appearance there. Next slide. So there you kind of see the hyphens, if you will, the detail within there, the curtain wall, the metal X formed metal with this ribbed metal, albeit in the dark gray. Between there, you see how we have organized the sign. We've organized the brick on the facade so that the ends of the gable forms provide a balanced place for the Roper signage. Next slide. And then similarly on the other side, and this is the side that starts facing the corner. And one of the things that I really like that we've worked out there is this sawmill blade sign on the corner to kind of it announces the entire project and also gives the building itself a nice prominence right there on the corner. Let's see, I think kind of touched on all that. The next slide. And so then some renderings and you know, good on us. Last time we kind of presented you BIM models and a vacuum and it looks like one thing. When you start looking at it in context, you kind of see the richness of the project, the portico shares, the prominence of them, anyway, so this is the side from the parking lot side, and we're looking at the urgent care entrance, and you can see the medical office building entrance in the background. Next slide, please. And then here, the corner that we talked a lot about. What you realize when you put it in context is that the whole building frames the corner. The whole, you're not just looking at the corner of the box per se, but that the ambulance entrance gives a nice activation to that end as well. You see the screen element up on the thing has now been made more integral to the four elements, and the elements walking down the street or moving down the street give it a nice scale in that regard. And then, of course, the blade sign, which I like very much. We were talking about on what before we came up here. One thing, when you look at the Stephen Whiteside plan, there are more trees that come around the corner, but we took architectural license, artistic license there, because you wouldn't be able to see the building if we left the trees in. So little artistic license in that regard. And one more slide, I think. And that's just kind of showing the brick corbelling and how that happens at the eave line. And then if you were to zoom in on a wall section, you can kind of see it above the doors or the windows as well. So in materiality, this is the kind of this rib material that captures in the curtain wall element in the hyphens that's in the charcoal color. It's called graphite. The record graphite color would be that dark color, and then the windows would all be black, and the roof would be a medium gray metal. So there's a nice palette of grays there. In terms of the brick, still supply chain issues relative to brick. So this may not be the exact brick we're looking at, but this conveys to you the intent. And that is to have a rougher edge brick, a modular brick. This might be a little, we got to do some sample panels to look at it, a little red, maybe more with a little orange, as you see here. I mean, we're talking in degrees here, but somewhere between that color and that color with this texture. And so that's the materiality of the project. And that I'll be quiet and answer questions.
Were there two tones of brick? Because one of the renderings showed a very light. Are there two tones of brick?
That's one.
Okay.
When you look at that,
The rendering had one facade.
and when you model it, and you try to get the sun right, to get the shadows right, go back one more.
Yeah.
It really makes that tone back there look really bright, but it's just the sun hitting it, so
Okay.
that we got our shadows right. And so that's the explanation for that. One tone.
And then what color is the spandrel glass on some of the curtains?
That would also be this color, the graphite. You're talking about it from the windows. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the other elevation, it looked blue.
Yes, you can see,
Go back to the elevation, Tim, if you could. Keep going. The building elevations. There we go. One more, two more. There we go. I
right,
saw some blue in there and I was kind of.
where the blue is.
The blue.
The blue's charcoal.
Oh, okay. You mean the glass panel?
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about that. In all honesty, I mean, that's true. I mean, it's generally indicative there that it is a spandrel glass. The idea would be to keep it in the same tonal quality as much as you could with the real glass.
And the rest of the glass is just clear glazing, or is it reflective?
Gerald has to have some gray, can't do it. But, not looking for it to be too gray, because I'm in daylight in the building. But yeah, we're not much in the colored glass. It won't be blue, so it won't be blue. And it won't be green. It'll be in the gray band. And we can certainly bring that back to file and we'll get that in.
And on the long, can you go back to the long Berlin Myers elevation? So they're set back at least 8 inches, 12 inches.
I think it's about 12 inches. You're talking about the height between them?
Yeah.
About 12 inches.
And again, is that spandrel glass on the HVAC?
On the HVAC, it's
Screens.
perforated, you talk about the top?
Yeah.
It's perforated metal.
Is that the metal you just showed us there? The metal on top, is that the metal you just showed us?
No, sir, this is the, this, when you go to the blow up of the hyphen. And you can see it, that horizontal.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
ribbing that connects the curtain wall element, it's right there. And it's also in the gable end of where they have the style.
Right.
Right there, yes.
Is that a face illuminated sign or a reverse channel? Do you know what the letters are? And we can defer that.
I don't.
Letters are illuminated.
I'm sorry.
The letters are illuminated typically for Roper St.
I
Travis.
think Roper does.
They just light the letters.
Answer that and not being conscious for Roper, so, I think we do typically see channel illuminated letters for Roper products.
Greg, you had some comments last time that you sent in your absence. Did you have any thoughts today on the architecture?
I think the improvements are better. I had a couple of questions on the colored site plan. And, my memory is not the steel trap it once was, but when we approved this the first time, when we approved the residential part, was there much more housing at that point? And has that changed to more commercial? Because I thought like 3/4 of the site was housing when we approved it.
No, sir.
That-
That's
this-
that is pretty.
That's the same thing you showed us the first time. Okay.
No, that's not our project. I'm pretty sure that's.
Yeah, I thought the housing sort of spread to where buildings 2, 11, 10, and 16 are. So that was a little bit of a surprise. Okay, so that was the first question. Second question, on the corner, the upper left, it looks like there's a canopy, but it's kind of like a cul-de-sac where you can't drive through it. What is the function of right up there? What is,
That's the ambulance entrance.
okay,
The ambulance will have to back in. And there was a lot of discussion about that with Roper and the ambulance people, because with it being pushed up to the side, you didn't want in the parking lot being adjusted to that side. You didn't want that cross traffic of pedestrian with the ambulance.
that's fine. I was just want to make sure it wasn't like trash.
Oh, no. sir.
No, okay.
Trash is on the right side of the building.
Okay. All right, and then I think everything else looked good. I think it's a nice building.
Is there any sidewalk connection to the public sidewalk on Berlin Myers or to the building?
The whole trail system is more or less a recreational trail. So there's not pedestrian access off that way. The access to the building is from the interior of the property.
Okay.
Now, the only other comment, the eaves seem thin to me, but I mean, that's your call. The building has a lot of mass, but the eaves or fascia seem kind of thin relative to the building. The height of the fascia along the slope roof seems thin compared to the strength of the brick building. You may want to just make sure that's what you want to do. I'm not telling you to thicken it. I'm just asking that you
Well,
look at that.
These
and make
elevations
sure-
don't pick up the corbelling,
Yes, I did.
but they've got about 3 or 4 feet of corbelling below this.
Well, look at
No,
the,
you're
cornices.
talking- I mean,
yeah, if you go back to the building section,
I think that's worth
there you go. See how the thing's pretty at the ridge. It seems like it's like 8 inches or 10 inches and you have this massive brick. So if that's what you want, that's fine. I'm not going to push back. It just seems odd. But I think the improvements you made are very good. It's a nice building. I'm a little, just throw out the caution of, please make sure the screens are tall enough to actually block the view of the mechanical equipment. And that you don't
It's
have
our
like,
understanding as of right now, I know what you're saying, as
Yeah.
of right now, they do. they're,
Mhm.
they cover the.
And you get a little slack because of the view angle. But the further you get away, especially on Berlin G. Myers, I think you're elevated a little bit coming down. Just make sure we can't see anything up there.
Are you illuminating the face of the building at all? I saw some downlights. Are you doing any? And we're not there yet.
Yeah, I mean. We're just trying to get past you today. We don't, that's a good thought, and I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I don't know the answer.
What is the board's preference? Uplight, no uplight?
I think uplight on this building is good.
As long as it's not too much. It's not Las Vegas, not Las Vegas.
Maybe up like where you've got the sign panels.
Well, we have a sign, we'll definitely want them to be illuminated.
Well, the signs will be illuminated for sure, but
Is the number on the corner blade sign, is that the address or is that just a placeholder? And is Sawmill just the name of the development that you want to promote?
Yes, that sawmill is correct. The number is made up.
Okay. So it's not going to be another Roper.
No. And I will add, by the way, we verified in the ordinance, and we are well under the amount of signage allowed. So that's all. So we're straight.
Any other comments from the board?
I think it looks good.
Tim, did you have any comments on the staff side that have not been addressed?
The one thing that I did call out, and I think it was asked by the board, was a connection to the Berlin Myers side path. And we know that there's an elevation change there, et cetera. If it's possible to make that connection to the Commerce path, staff thinks that it should be made.
I think it is possible. If you go back to the site plan, there's a sidewalk beside the dumpster that extended another 30 feet, could easily reach that.
Yeah, and that's what I was looking at. So if they just
That's not a good.
took it up here,
There's a better picture of it. Yeah,
it was just something that I think for the cohesiveness and to meet the intent of being a walkable mixed use development.
You're absolutely right, and I thought the comment was asking if we're doing doors off.
Yeah.
Absolutely connecting those.
yeah. So I think on the east side, you extend that sidewalk to the trail and also maybe even stripe some crosswalk striping across the ambulance driveway on the Highway 78 side, connecting to that front sidewalk. If that's possible.
Also. I'm gonna make sure I cover everything. Yeah, wall signage, as Mr. Muldrow pointed out, does meet it doesn't exceed the total permitted square footage. And the only thing that I had a question on that, the blade sign, is how far it projects from the building. There is a limit, which I believe is 3 or 4 feet. Didn't look like it projects more than that, but the ordinance does limit that projection.
That's in the ordinance.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll be included in later editions. It was one thing that was not included in this particular iteration, so.
Looks like you're sitting.
Well, I think the code says 4 feet. I think the code allows 4 feet.
Yeah, no more than 4, I'm pretty sure is the max.
Okay, did you have anything else? Okay. Anybody want to proffer a motion?
After you.
A motion to approve.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Next item on the agenda is a request for preliminary and final approval for exterior renovations to the existing structure located at 310 East Second North Street. Thank you. Give a little bit of background on this particular project. The exterior renovations have been completed and were done mostly without permits. Some minor modifications to meet code requirements are being proposed with those changes, as well as some mandated site-related requirements. Landscaping requirements do need to be met in the front yard of the property. The property is zoned DMX and parking in the front yard is not permitted. They can park within the right of way if DOT allows it. The accessible parking is shown in the right of way and should have an encroachment permit from DOT. And any paving not used for parking should be removed, not just the striping. So that's staff's comments. We'll hit the site. This is current condition. The entire front yard is paved, driveway, most up to the edge of pavement of East Second North Street. They have this turn. This parking was added to the rear yard after the fact. Currently, there's like a 5 to 8 foot drive aisle between the parking spaces, which does not meet the minimum 24 foot for two-way traffic and 90-degree head-in parking. I believe they have been working with DOT on some removals of various parts of the paving that was included with the, their new encroachment permit. So they're proposing to remove some of it. It's my contention that anything that is not being used for parking should be completely removed to the edge of the sidewalk that is here next to the building. Their proposal is to utilize some of that existing paving for an accessible parking space, make a usable drive aisle, and expand the parking and meet DOT requirements for driveway width and radiuses. So I will go from there and allow the applicant to address the rest of the situation. But I did want to highlight what we are expecting to be done in regards to this part of the plan.
Corey Stillings with Private Consultants for the civil engineers project. I'm kind of summarized everything I was going to talk about. Along the front, we've been working with DOT. They kind of sketched out what we would need to carve out. So that's what that's based on. The remainder was just left as a effort to save the owners some costs, removing the concrete. The town needs us to remove that, that's fine. The ADA parking is located up front simply because that's where the ramp was already located up front. There's no ADA access in the back. And then for the rear, we're just bringing the parking up to code and then adding the required landscaping around it. That's pretty much it for the site.
What is the it looks like PRLA staggered?
Yeah, so landscaping, we're proposing magnolia trees, the hedges up front, along the drive were Japanese holly, and then the remainder of the shrubs around the parking were cherry laurels.
What's the purpose of the driveway parallel to the building on Loblolly side? Is that for like funerals or? What's the purpose of that driveway there?
It's not entirely clear. It was already there.
Okay.
and DOT didn't require us to remove it. So we're leaving it. I don't, might be a staging area for the persons. Or when they're leaving to go to the site.
Is this funeral home?
Yeah,
Right.
maybe it would help if we could go to the existing pictures. So the top photo, is that on, I don't know, what, I forget what that side street was, but the street that was to our right? Is that what that is?
Chris Carpus, I'm an architect. This is the view of that side that has the drive. I think Mr. Smith probably put that into for a hearse and some family parking.
Okay.
That's what it looks like he was intending.
And y'all were, is it fair to say you all both were brought on really kind of after the fact that after a lot of this construction had already occurred?
That's very
This
safe
has
to say.
been outstanding for about a year and a half,
Okay,
2
So it wasn't his
years.
fault.
right.
Not this time.
Well, he's here though.
All right, just want to make sure.
So can you tell us exactly
Exactly.
what
All right.
you all are really
Okay.
bringing before the board?
Architecturally, what you see there, Mr. Smith did some work up to 2023 is the obviously the most recent picture, but you can see what it looked like before, and he did some work without permit, but so that's kind of where it is now. Basically, all I am doing or was asked to do the outside is to kind of take a look at it with respect to ADA access. Right now, the steps and the ramp, the steps are right on the center line of the main section there, and then the ramp is off to the right. They don't meet the code, and so architecturally, all I was proposing for the outside, beyond the mercy of the board, is to replace the steps, add some handrails, and the area to the right there, the ramp is kind of in the middle, and there are a couple of very wide stairs. Just adding rails to those, replacing those so that they're consistent and that the ramp's 1 to 12, and that is all I'm doing on that side. The back, do you want to go down one more? Yeah. So the back, the scope of work that I have is that he doesn't have a landing on the back, and so I propose taking that out and adding in the new landing and stairs and railing to meet the code.
Thank you.
Beyond that, that's the work that I'm proposing. You can kind of see where he is. Any questions?
And it may be in here, but so you're asking for preliminary and final approval. Do you have the details of the handrails?
No, I don't. They're 1.5 inch diameter pipe rails. That was standard
Just painted black? Or,
in black. Yeah.
and the stairs and materials will all match what's there?
Yeah. What he has right now is kind of a stone steps, and even the ramp is stone. Obviously, you want to make sure that that meets the ADA, but I would propose replacements to match what he has already built.
Okay, my feeling, Tim, is the issue of doing the work without a permit is the town issue. And I think that the DRB is here to really voice and vote on
The
what
design.
changes were made,
Mhm.
what they are here presenting. That's it.
I don't disagree with you.
All right.
I needed to highlight that fact
Sure.
because it is an issue that was that brought it here today. You know, the extent of the changes would have required DRB review. And if they had come in 3 years ago for the review, you know, that we wouldn't be here today with what we're seeing here. It would have been a completely different plan, so to speak.
Understood.
So I wanted to highlight that fact that they had done this without any consent. Staff hadn't seen it. We didn't know that it was going on until literally we got a phone call for an inspection to reconnect the electricity.
Mhm.
So,
Wasn't involved in that.
and yes, current consultants were not involved with that. This sat fallow for a while. I believe the property owner was looking for somebody who was willing to take it on, not knowing what was actually completed. And I think he lucked out, but truthfully, you know, we're happy to see it moving forward. And your responsibility on this is to address the design of what is being proposed per se.
Very good. Artie. Thank you for that explanation. Are there any comments or questions?
I don't think there's anything being proposed from a design standpoint that we need to rule on because they're meeting code. Handrail's handrail. Platform is a platform, a ramp is a ramp. Had this building come before us with the changes that were made with the field stone and the stucco or whatever it is there, we would not approve the building, I don't think.
Agreed.
So I think there are two issues. One, it's important to bring this thing up to safety standards and ADA standards. That's step one. Step two, what do we do with this ugly building? It's an eyesore, in my opinion. But that can be handled after they get their life safety things squared away.
Yeah, and they're not making any requests to effectively change the building or colors or anything like that. So I think all we have, our only purview is, like Tim said, what the life safety related stuff. So any other comments or questions?
No signage proposed?
None with this middle.
I would highlight with this, it is zone DMX, which is downtown mixed use. The front door is less than 20 feet from the front property line. No freestanding sign would be permitted. I believe they removed the prior existing sign to make way for their paving, which was actually in the right of way. So if they're going to have any type of signage, it would have to be on the building. Could not be on a freestanding sign.
Greg, you have any comments or questions?
Not really. The only question I had, and I wanted to drive by the site, is trying to understand how much of the paving is new versus existing. And the other question is, if it's new, is it in character with the rest of the neighborhood?
Yeah, so pretty much all of it is new. The entire front should just be grass.
Well, it's new, but you did not propose it.
For us,
It's recent.
For us,
It's done, in other words.
Existing.
right,
Okay.
right. We're just carving out some of that existing pavement now to bring
Okay.
up the code.
And
So-
they're making the
Parking
rear
lot on the
lot
left.
meets code.
But
Sorry, except for the parking you added on the left side.
Correct. So
Yep.
for the
At the rear.
backside, we're adding more.
Yep.
yeah, and that's the piece that and I don't know if that's zoning, whether the general business. It seems like a lot of paving on that poor little site.
The site actually wraps around to the back.
Mhm.
So there's a considerable amount of
So the owner has,
additional area. All of it is contained in the upper part of this reverse L. Everything that goes back behind those other buildings is untouched.
so you think there's enough of a open space, green space around what seems to be a ton of parking.
Yes, this is where they're extending the parking off the edge here. And this is the balance of the property. So you have a good amount on this side with proper landscaping and screening per code requirement. This will hopefully kind of blend in a little bit more to the streetscape.
Any other comments?
I think what the design professionals are doing is good.
Agreed. Yep,
What was previously done without any help is not good.
correct.
So.
Yeah.
I would move that we would approve what the design professionals are approving or proposing to be done.
Okay, is there a second? Any further,
I'll second that.
any further discussion? All those in favor for final approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alrighty, thank you. Next is 800 North Main Street, Kickin' Chicken. If you would, is anyone here for, okay, if you would just sign in and state your role. Are you ready or are you waiting on somebody?
Sure, I didn't know if Tim was gonna.
I will
Yeah, you will.
address staff comments. This is the first meeting. They are requesting preliminary and final approval for exterior renovations to the existing restaurant at 800 North Main Street. The design is to be consistent with the existing design aesthetic. They are proposing to add. Sorry, let me get there. So this is the location. And they're going to do a small addition on the front to expand the existing covered patio, make that a little bit bigger, do some interior modifications. A red 5V crimp roof is proposed over the expanded enclosed patio seating area. Siding to match the existing color and profile will be added. Stained wood to be used as screening in the rear. Shed roof awning will be replaced with red hanger rod metal canopy. And no major changes to the site are proposed beyond the minor expansion of the existing patio seating area. So at this point, I can turn it over to the applicant and let him go over those details. Where do you want me to start on the?
Photos are good, or site plan.
Up to you. Tell me.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon. I'm Justin Biden, architect. Been working with the Kickin' Chicken owners for several years now on several projects. Thankfully, this one's up on the agenda to be improved and brought up to their current standards. The building's been neglected, the site's been neglected a little bit over the years, but it's actually a good performing restaurant for them, so they're putting some money into it. It's not evident from the drawings, but it is a phased project. So we are proposing today the exterior work to the building only. I've shown you what's planned and proposed for the interior of the building, which kind of guides some of the exterior work. But that would be phase 2. I also have not yet included any landscape architecture, but the owners do want to make improvements to the buffer on Main Street and 7th Street, as well as some pruning, some large oak trees in the back that need a little TLC. So with that said, the proposal here is all exterior work, again, guided by the interior work. So not a huge change in the footprint of the building, minor in the front and the back, and 0 changes on, I guess, top and bottom in the site plan you see there. The photos, thank you. The existing building has a variety of different roof forms, elevation features, new and old materials, metal and wood and hardy, red painted trim. It's just not a cohesive project. There's really no effort, no legitimate effort made to hide rooftop mechanical units, utilities, gas meter, just a variety, a host of problems that, we think are making the building an eyesore. I appreciate the candidness on the last project from the board about, buildings being eyesores. So the goal is to make that go away, make improvements. I guess, Tim, if you can just go. Yeah, the previous photo. One of the key features of the project is to improve the front patio facing Main Street. What was built there is pretty low head height. It's dark. It's kind of like a dungeness space. So we're proposing, excuse me, the new patio will have much bigger center line columns facing, taller head height, and then a red roof, of course, like Tim mentioned. So the new metal red roofs will be the only red on the project. The rest of the exterior would be painted kind of a tone of natural colors. And then I'd say the second most important part of the project is parapet height and parapet consistency. So where we have a variety of roof forms that don't really hide mechanical units on the roof, we're trying to be consistent and let that transom height of the parapet wrap all the way around the sides and partially around the back of the building. So that, yeah, these two elevations show you the new, expanded spacing and airiness of the patio versus the very choppy low head height of the previous version or existing version. On this elevation, which faces 7th Street, West 7th Street, again, a low head height roof overhanging, I guess 5 windows on that elevation. So wanted to bring in more natural light to the restaurant as well as a more modern red canopy in this case on that elevation. And then you're starting to see on the left side of these elevations, enclosure. Modern take, what's there now is really just wood plank fencing in disrepair, I might add. So a new louvered stained wood screening wrapping partially this side, but mostly on the back of the building. I think Tim's keeping up with me, the back of the building here. So slightly darker natural color to sort of blend all of this enclosure, and the walk-in coolers are behind it as well. I think the last sheet is going to be, I'm sorry, this elevation, more parapet height improvements, new windows. It's the first time I mentioned that, sorry. New windows, black aluminum storefront, anodized aluminum storefront. And then I think, sorry, now the last sheet should be the material palette, color palette. I know signs have been coming up, so that no changes to the signage on the building. No changes to the freestanding signage on Main Street. Any questions?
Tim, could you go back to the front elevation? Front, Main Street.
We go.
All right, we start with the to my left here. Greg, do you have any?
Yeah, I like what you're doing to the building. I'm a big fan of Kickin' Chicken. I haven't been to this specific location, but I think it's a great chain. I'm glad they're in Somerville. The 3 sides I'm good with. The front I'm struggling with the intersection of the new roof and the existing gable end. That it may look okay in 3 dimensions, but to me, when I look at the 3 dimensions, when I look at the elevation, it just seems like a clash of odd geometry. And is there any way to remove the gable and just make it tower, red roof, porch. I think it would just be much more. This just looks like that piece, the whole project is nice, but that one corner just to me comes across as like somebody's residential addition who just kind of nailed stuff together, and it's just an awkward geometry. I'm sorry.
On the right,
No, I meant the gable on the right.
on the right.
I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The gable on the right intersecting with the new roof just looks like a car wreck. And if it could be removed, and then you just have, again, the tower, the porch, and then the taller building beyond. I think, it reminds me of the Germain Dermatology building in some ways that we looked at earlier. That had that same kind of odd intersection of roof and walls, and they came back and changed it and simplified, and I think made it nicer. And that's the only comment I have on the building, other than, I guess, on the tower, from the photos, and I remember this driving by because I drive by it a lot, it seems kind of like worn and tattered. Are you planning to repaint that, or the tower?
So back to the comment about the right side, I completely appreciate that. It's a tricky corner, so something definitely worth looking at again. We can introduce maybe another square tower, shorter tower element to hide that gable, which is not really consistent with the roof. We'll look at it. For exterior materials, yeah, I didn't explain that clearly. There's existing horizontal siding. When we are proposing to extend the parapet or extend those walls, we'll be repairing what's there and blending in new. For the tower itself, it's a corrugated metal, partially rusted. They are looking at replacing all of that material, as well as that roof, which is on different elevations.
Okay, so.
Just a little comment I have, to me, it's what bothers me is the doors aren't centered, the new doors aren't centered under the gables where they were before. I'm assuming that has something to do with what you're doing on the inside, but visually, that's what throws it off for me. But
Okay. Yeah, the main door, really, we're bringing in a new entrance to the building. The parking lot is on all sides of this building, and only one entrance is, I don't want to say causing problems, but I think it's a missed opportunity to have better entrances and exits from the building. The doors on the left, on the larger, taller tower, we are trying to make room for a host area in that tower. I think I can talk to them about if we can center those doors. It'd be an improvement on the exterior, maybe a smaller host station. The one on the right, also trying to make room for booths on the right side of that door. But again, we can look at that.
okay, and that may change if you change the gable on that side too, potentially.
Sure.
So, okay.
I think that gable goes all the way back to the rear of the building, doesn't it? That right front gable that we're looking at, doesn't that ridge go all the way to the rear of the building?
No, it stops. It's probably 15 feet deep,
Okay,
20 feet at most.
okay, right there,
Yes.
okay.
I didn't even mention, but on the interior of the patio, part of the phase 2 proposal for the project would be to have garage doors at their indoor-outdoor bar, which is, a kind of a calling card for kicking chickens. So, yeah, they show up on the front elevations, but I didn't even mention it in my description. Those would be black aluminum storefront as well.
Can you talk about the sign tower again? Right now, that's just anodized aluminum or some kind of silver metal, and
Yeah,
you're
Tim,
proposing to do what with it?
Tim,
leave
maybe
it?
the photos would help. It's a corrugated metal now, and it's not in great shape. You can see the seams. It just has metal flashing on the side. They are just proposing the idea of replacing all of that. That'll be a cost determination, I think, for them. But if we do, we're not proposing that on these drawings, but if we do, we'll bring in details for what type of metal specifically would be used.
I was just looking at other photos of the other Kickin' Chicken. And I don't think they're freestanding, the other ones, but they seem a little more sophisticated in ambiance.
Certainly the new Mount Pleasant location, which went into a developer building, with really nice details.
Is
I
there,
worked
Yeah.
on Dorchester project.
This is an old Shoney's that was renovated. It was probably about 40 years ago or something.
It's been like 4 other restaurants.
The Mount Pleasant location is new. It's probably built 5 years ago or something like that. But I don't disagree with you. That's just a little back.
And I don't
I mean, once you do your complete remodeling, it's gonna be a whole new restaurant, or at least a whole new feel, right? Except this big iconic tower is kind of going to stay the same, and basically the building itself will remain the same.
Yeah, I think, I mean, to speak for them, you know, they definitely weighed the option of tearing the building down and rebuilding a bigger project, but that would have triggered a lot of changes. It would no longer have been a building in a site. It would have been a building, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but it would have been on the street if they did anything major like that.
The property is zoned UCMX. It's in the transitional area between DMX, which is our downtown. Then we have UCMX and we have GB going up North Main Street. So if they were to completely redevelop this site, knock down the building, start from scratch, that would bring it to the front. So it would be a completely different form for this site.
But don't we have the ability, doesn't this board have the ability to waive that front loaded requirement? If we have the authority to do that.
Not fully. Certain aspects like the parking in front between the building and the front property line, that aspect would need to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance.
Mhm.
So there is some leeway, and you as the design review board do have the authority to make certain exceptions to those requirements, but some of that is still Board of Zoning Appeals, so on and so forth. So
Preliminary approval is not final. Let them come back.
I
They
mean,
can cut the Zadig out and extend that roof easily.
Mhm.
technically expanding a non-conforming use wouldn't be allowed, but it's not necessarily they're not really making the use bigger. We decided that this was within the wiggle room that we are allowed to have.
Sure. Okay.
So the original comment, and I think Peter reiterated it, was the tower is the main feature. It looks kind of tired. I'm fine with somebody going for preliminary approval. I think there's too much for final. And then we would come back and ask for some more clarity on what's really the plan for that tower. How can you make it look nice? And then what can you do to integrate the right end of the new roof with the existing building? And I'm not going to suggest how you do it. I just feel like it's kind of a rough intersection the way it's proposed right now.
I would also add that you talked about trying to screen the HVAC
Yes.
with higher parapets, but
Yes.
it didn't seem like you were accomplishing that. I think the drawing, if we can go to other elevation or something, not that one. I mean, right here, on the lower portion, is that still a big piece of sheet metal?
That is, yes, that is the DOAS unit for the hoods.
You're covered
Yeah,
about, you're
I-
covered
I-
about half of it.
I'm sorry.
You're improving it by 50%.
Is it set back from the edge of the roof?
Yeah.
So this is a
Yeah, the
elevation and not a
design is
perspective?
made to continue the existing parapet. But I don't disagree with you, and perhaps additional screening on the roof would be helpful in that particular case. I know there's an exhaust fan there as well that would benefit from some additional screening too. Phase, not that it changes your comment, but phase 2 of this project would be to replace existing mechanical. So I think an opportunity there. New technology, everything's smaller, so.
I think you should look at equipment screening. Doesn't necessarily be the parapet because that changes the whole massing of your building, but just some more aesthetic screening.
And I was making a comment about changing the mechanical units on the next phase, but I think we can encompass a large enough area behind screening to allow that to happen without. I think you know what I'm saying.
Sure,
without
sure,
having to
sure.
redo it yet.
One other little comment I had was, Tim, if you go to the sample board.
Apologize for not having physical samples.
No,
to
this is
show you,
fine.
but
It's fine. For this is fine. I think my first reaction to the metal roofing is it's I don't know a good way to say it. It's like the cheapest of metal roofing, you know, and it kind of, especially when you compare it to some of the other metal roofing, it doesn't look as good as what's already there. So I would encourage you to use a better quality material.
Well, this metal roofing is an exposed metal fastener type. It's a,
yeah, tough rib is very industrial. It's
so
like
you
barn
could, you
roofing.
could go with more of a snap lock standing seam panel for very little cost difference.
You've made me a happy man because I tried to encourage it as well.
Yeah, I think.
Any other comments?
The new front porch, does it extend into the parking lot any further than the existing one?
It does not extend towards Main Street. It extends towards the new double doors on the left side. of
It
the front
extends
elevation.
towards Main Street too. It cuts down on the width of the drive aisle.
Yeah, that's my question. Are we reducing the
You can
width of
see
the
it on
drive
the
aisle?
plan.
Let's go back and look at the
That-
plan then.
I apologize, that
That's all right.
not mentioned, so.
But it does by about, 4 or 5 feet probably.
Let's see.
That's existing. See the extension 3 to 4 feet.
So I guess my comment is if that driveway is less than 24 feet, then you should make that one-way drive and you should angle those parking spaces on fronting Main Street.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I'll take a look at that. I don't think that was the intention to increase in that direction.
Well, it almost has to do what you're doing.
And
Almost has to extend out.
It's fine to do that, but I think you have to take into account the ability to maneuver around it.
Sure, yeah. Angled parking and one way.
The narrowest that front drive could go down to potentially would be 22 feet. So if it's not 24 at the end, when you get to this addition, it does need to be minimum 22
It's
for
barely
90
12,
degree
it's
parking.
barely 12.
for
feet
90
now.
degree.
90?
Yeah.
Tim, it's barely 12 feet now. If you look at using the parking spots above as a gauge, they're 9 feet wide.
It looks really close. I agree with you, Bill.
You got one parking spot plus half of another one, so.
With
I think you
these
could angle-
projections, it's kind of off sometimes, but
But you could be 12 feet and still be one way.
Yeah, you can angle those and probably not lose any spaces. I would,
Yeah, you wouldn't lose, just got to be one way.
yeah, I'd probably angle the tail end of the cars toward the interstate,
Well, and you got some corner parking spots, in parking spots that need to be landscape islands too. That would help somewhat,
Mhm.
especially on that entrance off Main Street.
Mhm.
And while we're at it, take a look at the dumpster enclosure. If I recall, it's pretty dilapidated or, run down. So that may be an opportunity to bring that up too.
Yes.
Okay, so they're asking for preliminary and final. We had a lot of discussion.
No, I don't think final's an option.
Let's
Okay,
do preliminary and no final.
that a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Any questions? Okay, all in favor of preliminary approval, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Next is 503 North Magnolia Street. If you would sign in. State your name and your role in the project.
This is a request for conceptual review for a new multi-tenant building at 503 North Magnolia. Following your staff's comments, the proposed building meets the required setbacks. DMX allows for a 0 setback. The plan shows 5 feet. Though parking is not required to be provided on site, the applicant is proposing 7 parking spaces off-street, including 1 accessible space. On-street parking is permitted and would provide adequate parking for the uses. Pedestrian connection to the right-of-way is required, and sidewalk in the right-of-way would typically be required, but the town engineer can waive that requirement if they deem it appropriate. The closest existing sidewalk is at East 3rd North Street, Magnolia. A landscape plan has not been submitted, obviously being conceptual. There are no trees on site, so tree protection is not required. The future development of the site will need to meet the minimum trees or diameter inches per acre upon final approval. An 8-foot landscape border would be required along the edge of the one-way drive. The plan shows 3 feet. This will require DRB approval of an exception to that requirement. The Chapter 4 design guidelines do apply to the proposed development, specifically Section 4.4. And the current design does not meet those guidelines for exterior materials, first floor height, or opacity of the first floor. The design does not accent or highlight the corner with architectural elements. These elements can all be provided exceptions if the board chooses. Stormwater detention is not required. Currently, the exterior finish of the building appears to be corrugated metal siding. This would not be consistent with the design guidelines, and any exceptions will require DRB approval. Because of the location of the building on the lot, a ground sign will not be permitted, but wall signage will be allowed.
Tim, do you have any context photos on this? I don't recall.
I did not provide any, and because it's conceptual, it is, they did not, provide any of that. I mean, I could potentially pull up if you give me a
can.
second.
Yeah, I was
Be
just
helpful.
looking at Google Maps a little bit.
Just a reminder, and for you as well, I'm sure Tim told you, but this is just conceptual, so there's no vote. It's more of, let's just have a conversation. And if you could kind of tell us kind of what your intentions are, why you chose a metal building or why you're wanting to do this. That's kind of how we can get this started. So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, basically what I wanted to do is, get the most from the money. We have a set budget, wanted to put the metal building with, there's a house there that I rent out right now. Tear that building down, and I wanted to put a large enough building there where I can rent out 4 or 5 office spaces. I got a gentleman that wants, to rent one, basically gonna put electrical supplies in there and a desk. And that way you can just keep the stuff there. I have another lady that wants to use it for an office, sell real estate and stuff like that. Putting the building up basically for my retirement. But they will get it up, take me a couple of years to pay it off, then I can semi-retire, just build hot rods like I do now. That'll be my source of income. But I don't have to go to work every single day. I go when I want to go. Kind of new to this. I don't know exactly what I'm supposed to do, don't know what I'm supposed to do, so just kind of more asking questions, what is allowed, what's not allowed. This one tells you we can do this, and this one tells you can't, so I'm kind of here to figure out basically what I can and can't do. Metal building was the best bang for my buck. As far as, I was told that it meets all the codes, it's hurricane proof, they bolt it down, strap it down, all the stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's a third of what a brick building costs or anything else like that, so.
Sure.
I was told at one point, I could put a metal building in, and I was told another point, well, it just depends on what kind of metal building, so. Again, I can't find out what I can and what I can't.
Sure. And if I could ask, you own the building to the left of this picture?
That's what I'm in now.
Well, I mean, across the street,
Yeah. across
Yeah,
the street.
that one, yeah.
You can see the hot rods, cars.
Mhm. It's always
Is that
fun
truck
driving by there.
considered, is that truck, the gray truck, green truck considered a hot rod?
That one?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a 350 horse Eco Boost turbo Mustang motor in it with 60.
Nice.
All right, okay. Well, I have a couple of projects for you. I'm gonna stop by and show you some of my projects that I can't finish.
I have 6 or 7 hot rods.
Nice.
Okay. Yeah, it was always fun driving by there and seeing what's out there. So,
And I mean, too many of my friends are passing away in the 60s and stuff like that. And I told my wife, I said, we put a building up and a couple years we paid for, we'll live off the revenues on that,
Mm.
live a little bit. We're worried about getting older, getting sicker or dying or something like that. And I said, well,
yeah.
the money we got, this seems to be the best option
Mm.
right now, what I've been told.
Well, and right now you got a metal building across the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So,
The rub for me is, we have to be consistent on the board and what, another person came with a metal building recently. And we expressed concern that, Somerville has grown so much over the last 40 years that, the values here would support a brick building, a higher end building, that sort of thing. So we're really kind of pushing away from metal buildings. I mean, I understand the plans, I can appreciate those a lot. But that's the dilemma we're kind of facing is Somerville's, to me, is not really a metal building. This area, part of town is not really a metal building area, part of town anymore. So that's the challenge, it could be, if the property were sold, whoever came in more than likely would they might build a 2-story brick building. That's got a lot of architectural details and that sort of thing. So that's the struggle I'm having with this, but I'd love to hear from what the rest of the board, how the rest of the board feels as well.
I would also add, a nicer building will bring in higher income, higher rents.
From what I've been told, I thought people are told to use commercial buildings.
Uh-huh.
And they're telling me more, building work, I understand. But they're telling me based on the square footage that you're renting, not so much exactly what it looks like. As he told me that he said clients that just want building, as long as it's tight, and then other clients that, well, I want the best. But according to him, and a couple other people I spoke to, it's basically, they want square footage and good location. If you were further out of town, plus it's gonna be less heavy. The
Yep.
closer in town, you get more sought after because you're in town.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly
So
right.
let's
Yeah.
look at can we look, Tim, can you continue down the road we're headed and turn to the right so we can see the building that you own? I think you may have gone too far. Let's look, no, there we go. So go back. You went too far, I think.
There's 2 white buildings.
Yeah. Because you're gonna put it next to that building with the blue trim, right?
No, that's my building.
I know you're gonna put your new building next to that one.
No, taking that down.
You're tearing
Tearing
that
it down.
down.
Oh, okay. You're not going where the cars are.
No.
No, that's staying.
Blue trim, let's tear that down, but.
He's going where the cars are on the corner there.
That's demoed.
Okay,
The cars
so
are staying.
I think there's a couple of
So the
issues.
cars across the street where the red truck is next to the building.
Both of mine.
Those
This
are
is the
his.
site.
They're moving where the building's gonna take up that whole
I
lot.
own the whole
Okay,
Gotcha.
all
Okay.
right,
So
so
both
first thing
sides of the
is,
street you own.
there's metal building, which I believe means it has a metal frame. There's nothing wrong with the metal frame. They are cheap. They're good with wind. They move a little bit. But then there's the metal buildings that have a metal frame and metal siding. And I think that's where we want to try and articulate the metal siding. I'm concerned is going to be a problem. The metal structure, I don't think is a problem at
I
all.
mean, I can change the siding, like I said, I don't have any idea what the pound would do. So, I mean, there's different sidings that I'm telling you, they put on, reverb, horizontal, halfway up with veneer. You know, they can do the brick wall, 3 feet, 4 feet, then do metal siding.
You're gonna end up with metal wood or metal studs instead of wall girts.
Everything we metal inside.
Yeah,
Well, metal studs are, just like wood studs, except they're metal. But you're gonna have stud walls with sheetrock on them to rent it out for office space, et cetera, et cetera. And on the outside, you're gonna have some kind of either brick or siding,
Yes.
Not
whatever.
metal.
I have,
not metal siding.
I can do, like I said, I have friends that do tile, I have friends that do rock, I have friends that do this, so everybody's. I've
No
already
rock,
said this
no
side,
rock.
well, the same, it actually isn't rock, but it looks like rock, but
Okay.
I have different friends that help them do different things, I have electrician, I have this, I have this.
Yeah.
But I don't know which guy to call to do what, so I'm trying to know what I can do.
Mhm.
So I mean, if the metal build's good, we want brick siding.
well, again, I'm not sure brick siding is necessary. It might look good, but I think you have other options. It doesn't have to be brick. There's enough brick on the church complex across the street to satisfy that entire neighborhood. So it doesn't-
Plant some 8-foot hedges all the way around, so you wouldn't see most of the back of the.
I think what, Greg, I don't want to interrupt you, but I think what the component you need help the most with right now is an architect. Not a metal building supplier, because they're gonna, well, an architect will help guide you to the massing, where to put the doors, where to put the windows,
Square feet.
especially if it's someone that's worked with in the town before.
This side and this side on the road front side, we won't have the doors.
Okay, so let's look at can we look at the site plan?
Same thing.
What I'm interested in is seeing where is so you're increasing the building footprint considerably, and you're planning to go sidewalk to sidewalk.
50 by what?
Yeah, within
95.
95. So Tim, is that,
5,000 feet.
I'm sorry, what?
can he go that close to the property lines as he's showing on the site plan?
By zoning, yes.
Okay.
Now, there are building code requirements, obviously, for fire,
Okay.
safety,
Yeah.
et cetera, that need to be addressed, but by zoning, he could go to 0.
So the
And I was told by the code enforcement officer, since it's so many feet away from the house, the fire thing doesn't exist. If you're so many feet, you're gonna have burn proof wall on the outside.
No, you're okay. You don't have a problem with that.
I think that's okay. So where would the planting go in this concept? So well, there's no sidewalks in that area, right?
There's no sidewalk. anymore.
Okay. And is that space between your building and the street, is that owned by you or the state of South Carolina? That's DOT.
That's right away. Somewhere there's gotta be sidewalk put in along that street. Yes,
No, there's nothing there now.
I know, but you're gonna have to. When you put the.
And that's
building
what
there,
was
you're gonna have-
stated in the staff report is typically this would be required on both sides because these are DOT streets or one of them's DOT and one of them's, it was a little bit wonky. That being said, it doesn't exist now. Staff has the ability to waive that specific requirement if it doesn't make sense.
Well, we're gonna
SCDOT.
support if you don't.
Well, SCDOT has been extremely difficult recently regarding putting sidewalks in right of ways where they don't connect to anything and there's no specific plan to make that connection. That's why I highlighted how far away the closest existing sidewalk was. They may push back hard on our ability to request sidewalk in this right of way.
Well, then they're gonna have to be on the property, but they're gonna have to be sidewalks. So that would shrink your building down.
Well,
And you're gonna have access from those sidewalks into the building. So that pedestrians can get in and out of your building, not just from the parking lot.
I think,
Originally, I wanted to build it all the way to the back, and the parking, the entryway, and walkways up front. but
Right.
said you can't do that.
yeah, this is better. my initial concern was, it seems like the building is huge compared to the site footprint. It seems out of scale,
Well, that 50-foot dimension will probably go to 40 feet.
which it, yeah, you have good eyesight, Bill.
And then that 95-foot dimension will probably go to 80 feet.
And I think
So
that
it'll
would
probably
take-
end up a 4,000-foot building. And
Yeah.
For a 4,000-foot building, you don't have to have an architect. But you gotta have somebody that knows what they're doing to develop some drawings. But you will have to have a structural engineer, plumbing, mechanical, electrical engineer. And so you'll need some design professionals.
Okay.
And the architect will be very beneficial to you in coming up with a good looking building.
All right, so first comment I think we're saying is, there's nothing wrong with the metal frame. Second thing is, footprint looks big, and maybe a smaller building would be better.
Yeah.
And now I think if we could look at the building elevations, because the third concern I had was that it doesn't, this is the parking lot side.
Yeah.
It's just a random building.
Okay.
The
Okay,
lady asked me to give her an idea what it was.
Yeah. so I would aim for, not trying to make it look like a house, because it's not a house.
Well, I didn't,
But
I just said.
to
give her an
try
idea,
and-
so that's-
yeah.
Found on the internet, this is wrong.
Yeah, I think it has,
This is wrong.
I think it has to look, we looked at some buildings that were approved over by the sawmill on Maple Street. Maple and the railroad tracks.
Across the street.
So those were kind of new officey type buildings. I think it has to have character. This can't look like the hundreds of thousands of buildings we've seen made out of metal panels all over the country. It needs to
This is
feel,
not gonna have garage doors. It's not gonna be office warehouse.
right,
It's not gonna be flex space. It's gonna be basically office space.
but it needs to look like an office.
Needs
and
to
this
have
to me looks
glass
more-
doors, glass windows,
Yeah, this to me looks kind of like,
canopies over the doors.
Yeah, I can change the door, it was just, you want to see pop with the door, or the door.
You need somebody that knows how to design a decent looking building.
Yeah. all right,
Well, I was told I had to come here first. then
Okay,
go
that's
from
fine.
there, then
that's
go
fine.
to the architect, then go to the next.
That's good advice. That's fine.
So
that's-
Like I said, I had no idea.
Yeah.
smaller footprint,
And
not blue.
not blue. It needs, to me, it needs to not look on the exterior like a metal building. It needs to look like
A building.
a building. And then it needs to have low country architecture, like it was built in Somerville. It belongs in Somerville. This is a building that you'd see anywhere in the country.
Hmm.
So like we've been saying, you need to have an architect that I think can guide you on what the building massing should look like, and they can help you work within your budget.
And you need a civil engineer because you're gonna need a place to put air conditioning condensers.
I've already done all that.
Yeah, but where are you gonna put them?
I'm not using the split units.
What are you gonna use?
I'm gonna use split unit, it just mounts on the side of the wall, it's only about that wide, about that big.
That's a mini split.
Right.
You can't mount those on the wall of this building. That's not gonna be allowed. They're ugly. They look like junk. So you're gonna have to use a split unit or whatever. Package unit is not feasible. Split unit, yes, but you're gonna have to put either the condensers on the ground or the roof. If you put them on the roof, you gotta screen them.
Last time I said, I put them back, I said, you want them.
Huh?
Then I said I was gonna put them on the other side, he said, well, we don't wanna see them. Then I said, well, put them over here, so I don't want them over there, so.
You gotta
like I
screen
said,
them.
I've got 5 or 6 different.
Yeah. Well, that's why the
I
architect,
said, put them here, he said, no.
Bingo. You gotta screen them. You gotta screen them.
yeah, that's why the architect and the civil engineer can help you with that. They know how to kind of navigate that system a little bit.
And they've heard of all this stuff before.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
Yeah. So I think you can get there. It's just you got to have those couple of guys on your team to help you get there.
So. It could be a metal building, but it can't look like a metal building.
The interior structure can be metal building, that's affordable, but the exterior can't look like this. It can't look like a kind of utilitarian metal building. It's got
if you
There's
go to
actually-
the corner of Cedar and Doty Street, right over here. Straight catty corner across the block, Cedar and Doty, right by the railroad tracks, there's an L-shaped shopping center, little strip center, pre-engineered metal building.
Where that salon is? Or
Yeah, all
where
that,
is?
yeah, all that. Yeah, there's a Winchester's in
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
There's a new cosmetic doctor in there.
It's pretty good.
It looks pretty good.
There's
but
also one that I ran into, I didn't run into it, but I passed by without meaning to. It's over by the post office. Almost backing up to Berlin G. Myers Parkway. And I can't, it's some sort of, it looked like a social services sign of some sort up there. Do you know what that is? That's a metal building that I thought looked pretty, I'll take a picture of it when I'm out, if I can find it again. But it's not like you can't use metal. We're not saying there can't be metal on it.
Well, it can't have no signs.
It can have metal siding. And I think that's what Bill and I are suggesting is metal is not good or bad in itself. It's how it's used. And I think the drawing we're looking at right now is how metal is used on warehousey buildings that are, right. So we're not saying that you can't use metal. I'm just saying it can't look like, we don't want it to look like a warehouse manufacturing building. We want it to look like an office building.
You want, 4,000 square feet.
Probably.
Well,
Yeah.
again, I think there's a lot of issues. Bill mentioned the DC.
Well, you get dumpster enclosure, you
Yeah,
gotta handle trash cans somehow. You
just
can
kind of,
roll out carts or dumpster, but you gotta, gotta have something for trash.
Well, I was gonna put that in my, I
Huh?
was gonna put that stuff on my wall.
Or across the street. But you'll have to put a screen if you do.
Yeah, but you have, imagine code says you have to have dumpster on your own lot. Even if it's roll carts, you have
Because
to.
it's commercial, they do have to contract their own garbage collection, switching over from a residential use to a commercial use. Something this size and other projects have used the rollout carts for the commercial uses for the individual ones so that they don't need to supply a large dumpster enclosure for the entire thing. Depending on what's going in there, most places aren't going to produce a huge quantity in the need for a large dumpster at this scale.
Yeah, I don't think a garbage truck can't get around your lot anyway.
So I pull my garbage out the side.
Yeah, they'd have to do that. as
Well,
well.
it'll be carts, but you need a place to put the carts.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what, all that adds up to.
I also have 20 parking spots on the other side. That fence there.
That's good.
I have.
You got plenty of parking.
There's plenty of on-street parking over there as well. We explained at the staff level that he is not specifically required to provide off-street parking. There's adequate on-street parking to meet the need for a building of this size.
Mhm.
The layout that you see was something that I slapped together pretty quick just to show him what was possible if he wanted to provide that off-street parking. Resulted in some, the original building that was proposed on their first iteration was a little bit bigger than even what this is. But that's just to highlight, as it got laid out, to have sidewalks and, appropriate approaches. What you see there is, the first thing done by a surveyor. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any other comments from the board?
Are you looking to subdivide this into 5 tenants, or is that just
5 office units. I have a.
Okay, 5 users.
Doing both offices, take 2 offices at one time. One side of the offices, the other side of the. Yes, well, actually, one my wife is gonna do, she does theater and stuff like that, so she would do one. That was the same and all that.
If you had, 20-foot wide, 40-foot deep, that'd be 800 square foot apiece. You can get.
$1,200.
5 units, 5 units, 800 square foot apiece. 40 by 80 building.
What do you mean by this?
5 units.
Unit.
Oh, 5 units, oh,
40 by 80 building gives you 5 units, 800 square foot apiece.
yeah. And the reason we went this way, because everybody talked and said that most people want minimum 1,000 square.
Not true.
I'm just
800,
going on
800
top.
square, 800 square feet is a very good size because people will pay more money for 800 because the monthly payments are less. The bigger you get, the less your square foot you're gonna get. Unless you really are at Azalea Square or North Main Market, where you're getting $32 a square foot. But no matter what you do, you're not gonna get that where you are here.
No, we was ready in the ballpark about 2,000,
By what?
$2,000 a unit.
Per month.
2,000 a month?
Yeah.
That's 48,000 a year
52.
52.
or 52
Right. I can't do math anymore.
a month, 12 times
Well,
two.
You're right.
20,
You're right. You're right.
24,000, right? Or am I out of
Oh, you want a 4 unit?
divided by 800, that's about $30 a square foot. So it's done by the square foot.
I know,
not
but
bad.
we have people that are waiting.
Yeah.
To get this done,
So it sounds like you got some pretty lively tenants that are gonna pay you about $30 a square foot, which is pretty darn good. So you ought to hop on that. Make it go. Now you're gonna be triple net, or you gonna, they're gonna pay taxes, CAM insurance. They're gonna pay the property taxes too, pro rata share.
But I gotta figure out. Is what you-
But none of that makes any difference for us right here, right now. That's just something you gotta consider.
Yeah.
But it's,
I've got all the financial part worked out and everything on time, we just gotta figure out.
but if you can get 32, if you can get $32 a square foot. Plus at triple net, which is taxes, CAM, and insurance in addition. Cause you got property taxes, you're gonna have a lot of property taxes to pay. You're gonna have a lot of insurance to pay. And you're gonna have a lot of common area maintenance you're gonna have to pay for. Parking lot sweeping, grass cutting, landscaping, all that. So anyway, I think we've covered everything. I think.
Mhm.
You just-
Well,
you
if
need
you
some-
fix my car, I will cut your grass. So you'll at least save that.
Hey, my 94 S10 with a 350, 385 horsepower straight from General Motors. It's now 16 months waiting for that engine to get installed.
Not from him, is it?
No, Kenny
Well-
Morrison.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, I blew the engine. I put a 68 Chevy engine in it in 2007. And it ran good up until this past year, but $700 full automatic.
I can do it in the swamp too.
Well, the problem is he can't.
Can't get the engine.
He's a good guy.
All right.
He's got-
Sounds like it's happy hour somewhere. So any other questions or comments for us?
So.
Yeah.
We're dropping it down to 4,000 square feet, then architect can figure out how to make a metal building look. Not like a metal building.
Correct.
Or just get a contractor that's got a flair for design.
You don't know anybody that would fit that bill.
No,
You don't know anybody.
no.
Did a great job. All right. Well, we don't vote, look
Yeah.
forward to seeing
I
you.
just need to know what the next step was.
Sure. Yeah. That architect can guide you or the builder can
Architect's a
guide you.
good idea.
Okay.
Just. Once I find that, have him draw something and get a whole.
And come back to go ahead and tell him or her, come back with a concept. Don't let them take you down this road of doing all these hard CAD files, construction drawings and all this stuff. Just do a concept, bring it back. Let's tweak it, and then that usually goes more quickly. Okay.
So 4,000 square feet, don't make it look like that. Gotta have glass doors, glass windows.
But Tim will take minutes too, so the architect can help you on the finishes.
So
Or builder.
the only thing is that on that is, I mean, if I gotta have it, I gotta have it. But in the theater, the room that she wants, you don't want light and stuff, so if I go to glass doors, I have to cover it over.
We'll get down to that down the road. Yeah, well, that's not gonna be a roadblock.
Oh, like I said, theater, they try to take all kind of all the lights down like this.
Sure.
Just lights on the stage and stuff.
What kind of thing?
See that? Oh, this is.
If honor respect to veterans, we do
Yeah.
vintage performances and vintage attire, things like the Andrews Sisters.
Wow.
Cool.
You need more than 800 feet then, right?
Well, yeah.
For performances right now, this fall, we use the American Legion, which I'm about to be the commander of, and we do about 60 people.
Where's that, here in Florida?
Yes, sir, right around the corner.
The old Legion Hut?
On Sumter,
Oh, okay. Yes.
we have
So,
Bill's retired Marine.
No, sorry.
Well, whatever you call it. So.
All
All right,
right.
well, thank you
Very
so
good.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Yep.
it. We'll see you soon. Tim, anything else?
No.
Okay, just need a motion for adjournment. Greg, was that you?
Yes.
Was there a second?
Second.
All vote in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh, God.